Family dinners had always been more of an obligation than anything else. My mother called them sacred traditions, a way to keep us all close, as if stuffing ourselves with roast beef and mashed potatoes could erase years of growing apart. I never argued with her about it, though. She was the kind of woman who saw family as something unbreakable, unshakable. And for the longest time, I believed that too. But that night, something felt different. The dining room was filled with the usual sounds: silverware scraping against plates, glasses clinking, my father's voice cutting through with his usual talk about the economy and how young people don't know the value of a hard day's work anymore. I half listened, nodding when appropriate, but my focus kept shifting. Across the table, Emily was laughing. Not just laughing, glowing. At first, it seemed normal. She'd always been friendly with Jason. He was my younger brother, the golden child of the family, the one who could do no wrong. Everyone loved him, our parents, our relatives, our friends. He had that effortless charm, the kind that made people want to be around him. I used to be proud of that. Used to think it was just one of those things that made him who he was. But tonight, something about the way Emily was looking at him made my stomach knot. It wasn't just a casual laugh at one of his jokes. It was the way she leaned in just a little too much when he spoke, her eyes locked onto his like he was the only person in the room. It was the way her fingers brushed his when they reached for the same bottle of wine, how she didn't pull away right away. A flicker of a touch, almost unnoticeable. Almost. Jason smirked, eyes lingering on her for half a second too long. I had seen that look before, just never directed at my wife. I clenched my fork tighter, my grip whitening my knuckles. I wasn't the kind of man who jumped to conclusions. I wasn't paranoid, wasn't possessive. But I knew my wife. I knew my brother. And I knew when something was wrong. The rest of the meal passed in a blur. Conversations swirled around me, but I barely processed any of it. My mother asked if I wanted more potatoes. My father went on about his latest golf game. My sister was showing off pictures of her new dog. None of it mattered. My eyes were fixed on Emily and Jason, watching, waiting. And then it happened again. Emily reached for her glass, and Jason leaned in, saying something just low enough that no one else could hear. Whatever it was, it made her smile. No, not just smile. She bit her lip for a second, like she was trying to hold something back, like she was remembering something. That was the moment I knew. The air felt thick, suffocating. I wanted to stand up, to slam my hands on the table, to demand to know what the hell was going on right in front of me. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I sat there, silent, watching them, my mind racing. By the time dinner ended, I felt like I was going to explode. I barely said goodbye to my parents, barely acknowledged my sister. Emily was cheerful on the drive home, humming softly to herself, as if nothing was wrong. As if she wasn't just sitting across from me, making eyes at my brother like a goddamn teenager. I should have said something then. Should have called her out. But I needed proof. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, while Emily slept beside me. Her breathing was slow, steady, peaceful. I turned my head, watching her in the dark. She looked so innocent. I had trusted her, had married her thinking she was the kind of woman who would stand by me, who would never betray me. But now, I wasn't sure anymore. Her phone was on the nightstand, face up, charging. She always left it there. Always said she had nothing to hide. I reached for it, my fingers closing around the cool metal. I hesitated for a moment. Was I really about to do this? Then I remembered the way she had looked at Jason tonight. I turned on the screen. A notification popped up instantly. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. My breath caught in my throat. My heart pounded in my ears, louder than anything I had ever heard before. There it was. The truth. Plain as day. Everything inside me snapped. I stared at the message on Emily's phone, my fingers tightening around the device, as if squeezing it hard enough could change what I was seeing. But nothing changed. The words didn't disappear. They just sat there, staring back at me, mocking me. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. My stomach turned, a sick, twisting feeling spreading through my gut. I read it again, and again, hoping, praying, that I had somehow misread it, that there was another explanation. But there wasn't. Jason, my own goddamn brother. I could feel the heat rising inside me, a slow, seething rage building in my chest. I wasn't the kind of man who lost his temper easily. I had never been the guy who punched walls or screamed in someone's face. But right now, I wanted to smash something. I glanced over at Emily. She was still sleeping, her face relaxed, peaceful, completely unaware of the storm brewing beside her. The woman I had built a life with, the woman I had trusted, was lying next to me, completely oblivious that I had just uncovered the truth. She had been with Jason. It wasn't just flirting at dinner. It wasn't harmless. It was real. It had happened. Last night was amazing. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I forced myself to stay still, to keep my breathing even. I couldn't wake her up. Not yet. Not until I had more. I needed to see everything. I unlocked her phone. She had never hidden the passcode from me, probably because she never thought I'd go looking. I swiped into her messages, scrolling down to Jason's name. And there it was. A full conversation stretching back for weeks. At first, it was small things. Messages that could have been mistaken for friendly banter. But as I scrolled, it got worse. I hate sneaking around, but I can't stop thinking about you. Same. Every time we're together, I don't want it to end. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. I kept scrolling. He doesn't suspect anything. He's always so busy with work. He barely notices when I leave. That one hit me like a punch to the gut. I worked hard for us. Late nights, early mornings, making sure we had the life we wanted. And this is what I got in return. But the worst part was still coming. Last night was the best one yet. I love the way you. I didn't even finish reading. My grip tightened, my pulse hammering in my ears. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. Wanted to wake Emily up right now and scream in her face, demand to know how she could do this to me, why she would betray me with him. My own brother. I forced myself to keep going. I needed more. The texts weren't just about their affair. They were about me. I feel bad sometimes, but I don't know. He's so different from you. He actually makes me feel wanted. Like I was just some placeholder. Like I wasn't enough. It took everything in me not to wake her up right then and there. Not to grab her by the shoulders and shake her until she admitted it to my face. Instead, I set the phone back down, carefully making sure it was exactly where I'd found it. Then I got out of bed. I walked out of the bedroom, shutting the door behind me, moving on autopilot. I didn't even know where I was going at first. I just needed to get away from her, from the bed we had shared for years, from the life that had just shattered in front of me. I ended up in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter, trying to steady myself. My whole body was shaking, my breath coming in short, ragged bursts. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just some random guy she had cheated with. This was my brother, Jason, the same brother who used to follow me around as a kid, always wanting to do whatever I was doing. The one I had defended in school when other kids messed with him. The one I had helped get his first job, his first apartment. The same brother I had invited into my home, trusted with my family, my wife. And he had done this to me. I had never felt this kind of anger before. It wasn't just rage. It was something deeper, something raw and ugly that I couldn't even put into words. I wasn't sure how long I stood there, gripping the counter, staring at nothing. My mind was running in circles, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. Confront her now? No, not yet. Go to Jason's place and beat the hell out of him? That idea had its appeal, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. I needed a plan. I wasn't going to be the fool who got cheated on and just walked away. I wasn't going to let them win. I was going to make them regret this. Every single second. And it was going to start tomorrow. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room, staring at nothing, listening to the clock on the wall tick away the minutes. Every second felt heavier than the last, each one dragging me deeper into a slow-burning rage that refused to cool. I could hear Emily shifting in the bedroom, probably rolling over in her sleep, completely unaware of the storm about to hit her. That was the part that got to me the most. How easily she could rest, how peaceful she looked while lying in my bed under my roof after sneaking around with my own brother. The text had confirmed everything. This wasn't some fleeting mistake, some moment of weakness. This was deliberate, planned, ongoing. She had lied to my face, again and again. I clenched my fists, feeling my nails dig into my palms. For a long time, I had been the kind of man who let things slide. The kind who worked hard, took care of his family, did what he was supposed to do. I never played the victim, never caused unnecessary fights. But this wasn't something I could just let go. At some point, the sun started creeping in through the windows, casting long shadows across the room. My mind had been racing all night, playing out scenarios, imagining what I would say, what I would do. By the time Emily's alarm went off in the bedroom, I had a plan. I heard her shuffle out of bed, her footsteps light as she made her way to the bathroom. A few minutes later, she emerged, wearing her usual morning routine, a tank top, a pair of shorts, her hair in a messy bun. She stretched, yawning as she walked into the kitchen. She hadn't even noticed me sitting there. Typical. She went straight for the coffee maker, humming softly to herself as she prepared her drink. I watched her for a long moment. How many mornings had I woken up beside her, kissed her before leaving for work, never once suspecting that she had been sneaking around behind my back? How many lies had she told me? How many nights had she left our bed to be with him? She had no idea I knew. Not yet. I leaned forward slightly, letting the chair creak under my weight. That was when she finally turned. "Oh," she said, surprised. "I didn't even see you there." Her voice was light, casual, normal. It made my blood boil. "Didn't sleep," I said, keeping my tone even. She frowned, walking over with her coffee in hand. "Again? You've been working too hard." She reached out, running her fingers through my hair. "You should have woken me up. I could have helped." I fought the urge to pull away. Help? The same hands that had been all over my brother were now touching me like nothing had changed. The audacity of it nearly made me laugh. "I'm fine," I said, forcing a small smile. Her fingers lingered for a moment before she pulled back. "Well, if you're up early anyway, maybe we could go out for breakfast? Just us." She smiled, soft and sweet, like the wife she used to be. Or maybe she had always been like this, and I had just never seen it. I tilted my head. "You're in a good mood." She laughed. Why wouldn't I be? That was the moment I knew. She wasn't going to confess. Not today. Not ever. Even if I confronted her right now, even if I threw her phone in her face and demanded the truth, she would deny it. I could already hear the excuses forming in her head. "It's not what it looks like. You're overreacting. It was just a mistake." I wasn't going to give her the chance. Not yet. I played along. I let her kiss me on the cheek, let her sit across from me at the kitchen table and talk about nothing, completely oblivious to the fact that I had read every disgusting, pathetic text she had sent to my brother. I wanted to see how far she would go. Would she meet him today? Would she text him right in front of me? Would she pretend she was still the loving wife while sneaking around behind my back? I needed to know just how deep this went. So I nodded when she suggested breakfast. I smiled when she held my hand in the car. I listened to her talk about weekend plans like she hadn't been betraying me for months. But beneath it all, I was watching, waiting, taking mental notes of every single lie that spilled from her lips. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to make sure she felt this. Every ounce of pain, every bit of anger, every single moment of betrayal. She was going to experience it tenfold. Because this wasn't just about me. This was about us. About the years I had given her, about the trust she had shattered, about the family she had destroyed. And it was about him. Jason had taken what was mine, and I wasn't about to let that slide. By the time we got back home, I had already started putting my plan into motion. Emily thought she had fooled me. She had no idea what was coming. Emily had no idea I knew. No idea that every smile, every soft touch, every casual word she spoke over breakfast was being dissected in my mind. She played the role of a devoted wife flawlessly, laughing at my jokes, squeezing my hand across the table, asking me about my day like she actually gave a damn. If I hadn't seen those texts with my own eyes, I might have believed her. But I had seen them. And now, every time she looked at me, all I could think about was the way she had looked at Jason across the dinner table. The way she had leaned into him, her eyes glowing, her smile just a little too wide. She wasn't looking at me like that now. No, this was the performance she put on for me, the husband she was stringing along while she slithered around behind my back. It took everything in me to keep my expression neutral, to nod along like I wasn't planning her downfall with every second that passed. I didn't confront her that morning, or that afternoon. Instead, I waited, because now that I knew the truth, I wanted to see everything. I wasn't just going to catch her in a single lie. I was going to catch her in all of them. I wanted to see how deep this went, how long they had been sneaking around behind my back, how many times she had kissed me goodnight before going to him, how many times she had told me she loved me while lying to my face. So I played along. When we got home from breakfast, she stretched on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong, like she wasn't sending messages to my brother, planning their next meeting. She glanced up at me. I might head out for a bit later. I barely reacted. Yeah? Where to? She shrugged. I was thinking about stopping by the mall. I need a few things. Lie. She wasn't going to the mall. I had seen the texts. Meet me at the apartment around 2. I'll tell him I'm going shopping. See you soon. Right on schedule. I nodded, pretending to be disinterested. Sounds good. Need me to pick up anything while you're out? She smiled, oblivious. Nope, I've got it. She thought she was so clever. A few hours later, she kissed me on the cheek before heading out. She even threw in an I love you. The words made my stomach turn. I watched her walk out the door, her car pulling out of the driveway. I let her get a few minutes head start. Then I grabbed my keys and followed. The chase. I kept a good distance, careful not to get too close. I wasn't a detective, wasn't trained for this, but I didn't need to be. She wasn't expecting me to be watching. She wasn't expecting anything. Sure enough, she didn't go anywhere near the mall. Instead, she drove straight across town, taking back roads, avoiding the main streets. Almost like she was being careful. Almost like she knew this was wrong. She pulled into the parking lot of an apartment complex, one I recognized immediately. Jason's place. She didn't hesitate. She parked, stepped out of the car, and walked inside like she had done 100 times before. Maybe she had. I sat there in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. So this was it. Proof. Undeniable. It wasn't just texts. It wasn't just flirty glances. She was here, with him. The anger inside me was boiling over, threatening to take control. Every instinct in my body told me to march up those stairs, kick the door down, and drag Jason out by his throat. But I didn't. Not yet. Because this wasn't just about catching them. It was about ruining them. I forced myself to sit back, taking slow, deep breaths. I needed to be patient. I needed to be smart. I grabbed my phone and started taking pictures. Emily's car in the parking lot. Her walking into the building. The exact time she arrived. Evidence. Then I waited. Minutes passed. Then an hour. She was in there for a long time. I imagined what they were doing, and my blood pressure spiked so hard I thought I might actually black out. But I stayed put, because this was only the beginning. The next move, by the time she finally came out, the sun was already starting to set. She stepped out of Jason's building, adjusting her hair, smoothing down her clothes like she was making sure she didn't look too disheveled, like she wanted to cover her tracks. She had no idea that I had already seen everything. I snapped another picture. Then I drove home. I beat her back by 10 minutes, just enough time to pour myself a drink and sit on the couch like I had never left. When she walked through the front door, she looked exactly the same as she had when she left. Except now, I knew what she had been doing. She smiled. Hey, babe. I forced myself to look up at her, to smile back. Hey, get what you needed. She nodded. Yeah, but the mall was packed. Took longer than I thought. Lie. I sipped my drink. Yeah? By anything. She hesitated, just for a split second. A flicker of panic in her eyes before she covered it up. A few things, she said casually. Nothing exciting. I smiled. Let me see. That was when I saw it, fear. It was just a flash, a quick flicker of hesitation, but it was there. Because she had nothing to show me. She hadn't been shopping. She hadn't bought anything. She had spent the last few hours in his bed. She laughed it off, waving a hand. Oh, I left some of it in the car. I'll bring it in later. Lie. I sipped my drink again, nodding. Sound good. I watched her as she walked into the kitchen, pouring herself some water like nothing was wrong. She really thought she was getting away with this. She really thought I was just another clueless husband who had no idea what was happening under his own roof. She was dead wrong. Because I wasn't just going to expose her. I was going to destroy her. And Jason? He wasn't walking away from this either. This was just the beginning. I had all the proof I needed. The texts, the photos, the lies spilling out of Emily's mouth like she had been rehearsing them for months. But exposing them wasn't enough. Not yet. This wasn't about catching my wife cheating. This was about making her pay for it. And Jason? He wasn't just some random guy she had picked up at a bar. He was my brother, my own flesh and blood. He had sat across from me at family dinners. He had laughed with me, asked me for favors, borrowed money from me. He had looked me in the eye while sneaking around with my wife. They had both made a fool out of me. And now, I was going to make them regret it. The first step, laying the foundation. Emily thought she had gotten away with it. She walked around the house like nothing had changed, kissed me goodnight, made small talk over breakfast. But I wasn't playing the part of the clueless husband anymore. I was planning, calculating, watching. I started small. That night, after she fell asleep, I took her phone again. Not to read more of her disgusting texts, but to ensure she didn't catch on. I marked her messages with Jason as unread, put her phone back exactly as I found it. Then I took a step further. I went to our shared laptop and checked the browser history. Sure enough, she had been covering her tracks, deleting searches, erasing messages, making sure I wouldn't find anything. But nobody's perfect. I dug deeper, found emails she hadn't thought to delete, logged into our phone carrier's records, and pulled up call logs. She had called Jason almost every single day, multiple times, and yet she never mentioned him to me. Not once. I took screenshots, saved them, backed them up to a separate drive. Every little thing was another nail in the coffin. The second step, setting the bait. Emily had no idea that I was turning the screws on her, but I wanted her to feel it. The next morning, I acted normal, like any other day. I kissed her before leaving for work, told her I'd be home late. Except I didn't go to work. I parked a few blocks away and waited. And like clockwork, she left the house an hour later, dressed up like she was headed for a date. I already knew where she was going, so I beat her there. I drove straight to Jason's apartment, parked out of sight, and waited. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, Emily pulled into the lot. She glanced around just for a second before hurrying inside. That tiny moment of hesitation told me everything. She knew what she was doing was wrong. She was just hoping she wouldn't get caught. I took more pictures. Her car in his lot. Her walking inside. Time-stamped. Documented. Then I made my next move. I called her. She answered on the second ring. Her voice just a little too chipper. "Hey, babe," she said. "What's up?" I could hear the lie in her voice. The fake casualness. "Just thinking about you," I said. "Wanted to see how your day was going." "Oh, just running some errands." Lie. I could almost hear the tension in her breathing. She was standing in his apartment, talking to me. I wanted to laugh. "Anything exciting?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "Not really," she said quickly. "Just picking up some things for the house." I glanced at her car, still parked in Jason's lot. For a second, I considered telling her I was watching, that I knew exactly where she was, exactly who she was with. But I held back, because I wasn't done yet. "All right," I said smoothly. "See you later." "Love you," she said. I let a pause stretch just a little too long. Then I said it back. She had no idea how close she was to losing everything. The third step, letting the walls close in. I didn't confront Jason, not yet. I wanted him to sweat, so I started dropping hints. Little things. At the next family gathering, I made sure to shake his hand a little too firmly. Held his gaze just a little too long. He flinched. Good. Emily, on the other hand, acted like nothing was wrong. She even looped her arm through mine at one point, leaning into me like she was the perfect wife. I let her, because soon she'd be begging for that privilege. A few days later, I pushed further. We were sitting on the couch one evening, watching TV, when I casually brought up Jason. "Haven't seen much of my brother lately," I said, keeping my voice light. "Think he's been busy with work." Emily stiffened. It was small, almost imperceptible, but I caught it. "Oh," she said, feigning nonchalance. "Yeah, probably. He mentioned something about a project the last time I saw him." Lie. I almost smirked. "You talk to him much?" I asked. She hesitated. "Not really." Lie. I had phone records that said otherwise. I nodded, pretending to believe her, letting the silence stretch between us. She shifted uncomfortably, playing with the hem of her shirt. I could feel the tension radiating off her. She was nervous. Good. That meant she was starting to feel it. She didn't know how much I knew, but she knew something was off. And that's exactly where I wanted her. The final step, the fall. By now, I had everything I needed. Proof, a timeline, witnesses, a clear-cut case of betrayal. But I wasn't just going to throw it in her face. No, I was going to make her crumble. I started leaving subtle reminders around the house. One day, I left Jason's cologne on the bathroom counter, just sitting there. Emily saw it. Her face went pale. "Is this yours?" she asked, her voice just a little too forced. I shrugged. Must have left it here at some point. She nodded, but I saw the way her fingers clenched around the bottle before she put it away. A few days later, I accidentally left my phone open on the kitchen counter, right on a fake Google search about cheating spouses. When she walked by, she froze. Didn't say a word, but I could feel her watching me more closely after that. Good. Let her wonder. Let her sweat. Let her realize, slowly, painfully, that her world was about to collapse. And then I would end it. Not with a screaming match. Not with a fight. No. Emily and Jason had betrayed me in the worst way imaginable. So I was going to make them beg for mercy before I walked away. And when I did, I was going to make sure they never forgot it. Emily was starting to unravel. I could see it in the way she moved around the house. More cautious, more aware. Her usual confidence had been replaced with something else, something unsure. She was watching me. She didn't know what I knew, didn't know how much I had seen, but she could feel it. The shift, the tension, the way my questions came just a little too casually, the way I looked at her a second longer than necessary, as if I was waiting for her to crack. She was nervous, and nervous people make mistakes. Jason, on the other hand, had gone quiet. He wasn't calling as much, wasn't texting Emily as frequently. Maybe she had warned him. Maybe she had told him she felt something was wrong. Good. Let him worry, because I wasn't finished yet. The first crack. A week had passed since I followed Emily to Jason's apartment. A week of watching, waiting, letting her dig her own grave. And then she slipped. It was late, past midnight. I was in bed, pretending to sleep, waiting. Then I heard it. A soft vibration from her nightstand. A text. Emily shifted beside me, her breathing changing slightly. She thought I was asleep. Slowly, carefully, she reached for her phone, turning her body away from me as she checked the screen. I didn't move, didn't react, but I didn't need to see the name. I already knew who it was. Jason. A second passed, then another, and then she did something she hadn't done before. She deleted the message. I knew because the screen flashed twice. The first time when she opened it, the second when she cleared the notification. It was instinctive, a reaction, and it was the proof I had been waiting for. She knew she was doing something wrong. She knew she had to hide it, and that meant she was scared. The game was shifting. I wasn't just suspecting her anymore. Now, she suspected me too, letting the walls close in. The next morning, I let her sit in her own anxiety. She was quiet over breakfast, stirring her coffee too long, not meeting my eyes as easily as she usually did. And I acted like everything was fine, because that's what she wanted. She needed me to be oblivious. She needed to believe she still had the upper hand. So I gave it to her. But that afternoon, I made my next move. I waited until she left for work, then grabbed my spare key to Jason's apartment. He didn't know I still had it. And why would he? I had given it back years ago, or so he thought. But I had made a copy back when we were still close, back when I never imagined I'd need it for something like this. I drove across town, parked 2 blocks away, and walked to his building like I belonged there. Nobody questioned me. Nobody stopped me. Jason was at work, Emily was across the city, and I was about to step into their sanctuary, inside the snake pit. The moment I stepped inside Jason's apartment, I felt it. That wrongness. The air was thick with it. I walked through the place, slowly, methodically, taking in everything. It was too clean, too perfect, like he had wiped the place down recently, almost like he was covering something up. I checked the bathroom first. A second toothbrush sat next to his. A woman's toothbrush. Not just any woman's. Emily's. A fresh bottle of her perfume sat on the counter. Her scent was everywhere. I moved to the bedroom. The bed was made, but I knew better. I pulled the sheets back. Sure enough, the faintest trace of perfume clung to the fabric. I walked to the closet. Jason's clothes were shoved to one side. The other? Emily's clothes. folded neatly. A few dresses, a sweater. One of her bras tucked into the corner, hidden but not well hidden. She lived here. Not full-time. Not yet. But enough that she was comfortable. Enough that she had a place in his life, in his bed. Enough that she knew this wasn't just some meaningless affair. This wasn't just cheating. This was something more. I felt something inside me shift. A cold, calm clarity. I wasn't angry in this moment. I was focused. Because I wasn't here just to see their betrayal. I was here to set the stage. Turning the tables. I started small. I opened one of Jason's drawers and carefully rearranged a few things. Nothing drastic. Just enough to make him second-guess himself. Then I went to Emily's side of the closet and took one of her sweaters. Not to keep. To leave somewhere. A place Jason wouldn't think to check. A place where Emily wouldn't remember leaving it. A place that would make them question each other. Then, I grabbed a pen and a sticky note from Jason's desk. I wrote, "Does he know?" Then, I tucked it under Emily's perfume bottle in the bathroom. She'd find it eventually. And when she did, she'd panic. Because she wouldn't know who left it. Jason? Me? Someone else? It would plant the first seed of doubt. And doubt. Doubt could destroy them faster than I ever could. I walked out of the apartment exactly as I had entered. Calm, silent, unnoticed. And when Emily came home that night, I acted like nothing had changed. But everything had. The breaking point. The next day I waited. Waited for Emily to go to Jason's place again. Waited for her to see the note. Waited for the paranoia to set in. And then I made my move. That evening, as we sat down to dinner, I looked across the table and said, "Hey, I ran into Jason today." Emily froze. "Oh," she said too casually. "That's nice." I nodded, watching her carefully. "Yeah, he seemed off." Her hand tightened around her fork. "Off how?" I shrugged. "I don't know. Like something was bothering him. Like he was nervous about something." I saw the flicker of fear in her eyes. The way she quickly looked down at her plate, trying to compose herself. "I'm sure it's nothing," she muttered. But I wasn't done. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my voice smooth. "Maybe I should ask him about it next time I see him." Emily snapped. "No." It came out too fast. Too sharp. I raised an eyebrow. "No." She forced a laugh, shaking her head. "I just mean you don't need to. He's probably just stressed with work." Lie. And now, she knew I knew something. I took a sip of my drink, let the silence stretch, let her squirm. Then I set my glass down and said, "Yeah, you're probably right." Because I wanted her to sit in it. I wanted her to stew in the fear. I wanted her to wait for the moment everything came crashing down. Because she wouldn't know when I was going to strike. But she knew it was coming. And that was the real punishment. Because I wasn't just going to end this. I was going to make her end it first. Emily was unraveling. The cracks in her carefully crafted facade had turned into full-blown fractures, spreading fast, impossible to ignore. She barely ate. She barely spoke. She kept checking her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, eyes darting across the screen with a paranoia that wasn't there before. She was waiting for me to explode, waiting for Jason to say something, do something, confirm her worst fears, that I knew everything. She had no idea how deep I had buried the knife, but she could feel it twisting. And that was exactly what I wanted. The house of lies collapses. It happened 3 days after I planted the note. Emily had been on edge the entire time, pacing the house, biting her nails, a nervous tic I hadn't seen in years. She was distracted, her usual confidence completely stripped away. Then, she made a mistake. It was late afternoon. I was sitting in the living room, pretending to scroll through my phone, when she grabbed her keys. "I'm heading out for a bit," she said. I looked up, keeping my expression neutral. "Where to?" She hesitated. "Too long." "Just the store," she said quickly. "We need a few things." Lie. We had gone shopping yesterday. The fridge was stocked. I didn't call her out on it. I just nodded. "All right." She paused for a second, waiting for something, expecting something. Maybe an accusation. Maybe a question. When I gave her nothing, she swallowed hard, turned, and walked out the door. I gave her a head start. Then I grabbed my keys and followed. I didn't even have to guess where she was going. I already knew. The final straw. I parked a block away from Jason's apartment, watching from a distance as Emily's car pulled in. She didn't hesitate this time. She was too anxious, too desperate for answers. She went inside, her body language tense, urgent. She was afraid. I smirked. Good. This time, I didn't wait. This time, I got out of my car, walked right up to Jason's front door, and knocked. Hard. I heard movement inside, frantic whispers, the shuffling of feet. Then, Jason's voice, low and panicked. Shit. It's him. Emily gasped. No, he wouldn't. But I knocked again. Louder. And this time, I didn't wait for an invitation. I twisted the handle and pushed the door open. Jason and Emily were standing in the middle of the living room, frozen like deer caught in headlights. She was pale, her eyes wide, her hands trembling at her sides. Jason? He looked terrified. Hey, I said casually, stepping inside. Hope I'm not interrupting anything. Emily took a step forward, her voice shaking. I raised a hand, cutting her off. Save it, I said. Then I turned to Jason. My own brother, huh? Jason swallowed hard. Listen, man. No, I said sharply. You listen. I took another step forward, watching as he instinctively took one back. You sat across from me at dinner. You shook my hand. You pretended to be my brother while screwing my wife behind my back. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Emily reached for my arm. Please, let me explain. I yanked away from her. She flinched. Explain. I laughed, shaking my head. Oh, this should be good. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling. Her eyes widened. What are you doing? She stammered. I smirked. Oh, just looking through some of our memories together. I pulled up the photos. The ones of her car in Jason's parking lot. The ones of her walking into his apartment, time-stamped. Then I pulled up the texts. The ones I had forwarded to myself. Then the phone records. Every call. Every lie. I turned the screen toward her. Want to explain this? Her breath hitched. Jason paled. For a second, the room was completely silent. Then she cracked. Okay. Yes, she burst out, hands shaking. I was with him, but it didn't mean anything. Bullshit, I said coldly. She started crying. I didn't care. I made a mistake, she sobbed. I didn't mean to hurt you. I laughed, stepping back. Didn't mean to? I gestured to Jason. So, what? You tripped and fell onto my brother. She choked on a sob. It wasn't like that. Oh, really? I tilted my head. Because the texts say otherwise. Jason finally found his voice. Look, man, I was stupid, okay? I wasn't thinking. I turned on him so fast he flinched. You weren't thinking? My voice dropped to a dangerous calm. So what were you thinking, Jason? When you invited my wife into your bed? When you sat across from me at dinner, pretending like nothing was wrong? His mouth opened and closed. Coward. I trusted you, I said quietly. Both of you. Emily stepped forward, desperate. Please, we can fix this. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. Then I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a stack of papers. Her face fell. She knew what they were before I even said a word. Divorce papers, I said. Already signed. Just need your signature. She gasped. Wait, what? No, we can talk about this. I shoved the papers into her chest. You already made your choice. Jason opened his mouth. Dude, don't. I cut him off with a glare, so sharp he shut up instantly. Then I turned back to Emily. You get nothing, I said. No money, no house, no second chances. Her lips trembled. And as for you, I turned back to Jason, I don't have a brother anymore. Jason looked like I had just punched him in the gut. Wait. I stepped past him, walking toward the door. Emily chased after me. Please wait. I turned back one last time. She was sobbing, clutching the divorce papers like they were a lifeline. Jason just stood there, defeated, looking at the wreckage we had once called a family. And me? I felt nothing. Just cold, hard satisfaction. I stepped out the door, pulling it shut behind me. And as I walked away, I heard Emily collapse into sobs. I didn't turn back, because she wasn't my problem anymore.